This episode is brought to you by Allstate. Some people just know they could save hundreds on car insurance by checking Allstate first. Like, to check you have the tickets in your wallet first before you drive 2 hours to the big game. Seriously, you had one job. Now the closest you'll get to the 50-yard line is parking lot D. Yeah, checking first is smart. So check Allstate first for a quote that could save you hundreds. You're in good hands with Allstate. Savings vary. Terms apply. Allstate Fire and Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Northbrook, Illinois.
Money decisions don't have to be either or. With Bank of America, they can be yes and. Like yes to sunny vacations and rainy day funds. Can our digital tools and guidance help you create the future you want? Yes. And help you keep enjoying today too. Do more with a bank that asks, what would you like the power to do? Explore our tips and more at bankofamerica.com/yes and.
Whether you're ordering wings for the game, whipping up a 7-layer dip, or ordering pizza, there's something about football that makes you want to eat. And this football season, Uber Eats has the best deals on game day food. No matter what you're craving, from 2-for-1 pizza to buy one, get one wings, Uber Eats will be dropping new deals each week, all season long. Uber Eats, official on-demand delivery partner of the NFL. Order now. Terms and conditions apply. See app for details.
Hello and welcome to Islanders Anxiety from Lighthouse Hockey and the Fans First Sports Network. My name is Dan Saracini. Joining me on this Sunday afternoon via Zencaster is my friend Michael Lieboff. And Mike, I can't believe we're about to have the conversation that we're about to have, which is the same conversation we've had last week and much of last season and the season before that. The Islanders once again showing their inability to hold a lead, to kill a penalty, to show up when it matters the most. And now, for an added kicker, we bring back an old friend, the old attendance problems, so we can talk about. Although these are different attendance problems than the attendance problems they used to have. Well, I guess they are and they aren't. But it was not a great week for the Islanders after 2 losses this week and 1 win. We got a lot to get to. We're going to throw in some Master League theater in the second half here. But right now, as we sit here after their loss Saturday night to the Cup champion Florida Panthers, where is your head at regarding the New York Islanders?
Yeah, there's a lot of real stuff to be frustrated at or about. And I'm very frustrated about it. And like you said, I think what you've coined like game 186 of the 2022-23 season is very apt, and we're now definitely in that. The Islanders have identified the blown leads as a trend. I hope you saw, right? Which is
finally, yes.
Yeah, the trend. Yeah, but like there's real stuff to be mad at or mad about if you're a fan. The blown leads, the penalty kill, like the abandoned ship of what made them a decent team down the stretch last year. They played at a 100-point pace under Patrick Roy in the second half last year, where they really tightened up and played pretty well. They're not getting production from Matt Barzal, like Bo Horvat. I think they've played all right, but they're not doing what they're supposed to do. In terms of like leading the team in points. You can also say that it's a little frustrating because they're getting really good production from the questions coming into the season for the most part were, will Kyle Palmieri have another good year? And so far, so good. Will Brock Nelson continue to score the way he always does, despite some people not realizing that he does it every year? He sure is. Anders Lee has been back to his kind of vintage self. He got 3 or 4 goals?
Yeah.
Scott Mayfield's looked good. Alex Romanov's looked good. The biggest question mark, Ilya Sorokin, he's been good. And despite those things ticking those boxes, like they're still struggling. So there's real stuff to be upset about. And what's frustrating even more, and this is a consequence of losing a lot, like or getting off to a poor start, or when your team's in a rut, the fan bases will go down into some weird rabbit holes and act irrationally, because that's what fans do, no matter good or bad. So instead of the fans focusing on, what the real stuff to be frustrated at, we're now also getting invented stuff to be frustrated at, because apparently, according to some people, Patrick Waugh and Lou Lamoriello can't even stand the sight of one another right now, which I will make one prediction here. That is not true. And we have beat writers flipping out because the team didn't send a coach or player to do a press conference before the game, which was also a signal that Patrick Waugh and Lou can't stand one another.
Despite talking to the general manager before the game.
I think we should just bury that one right off the bat here, because I can't believe people are getting upset about this. Well, I know why beat writers are, right? Because that's part of their job is filing stories and getting them in on time. And one easy story every night is, hey, Pierre Engvall's back in the lineup. What do you expect from him tonight? Here's a quick 300-word story I can file to my editor. That's one. And then I just have to do the game story, and that's it. That makes my job easier. Because if you saw, like, the people who were pearl clutching about that were just beat writers, and then fans seeing beat writers say, I'm shocked and disappointed, or they're violating a rule. They're not violating a rule. They sent the general manager, who people get mad at that he never speaks, spoke to the media because they made a bunch of transactions,
right?
And that wasn't good enough.
And he explained every single one and the rationale for every single one, and he talked who was going to be out of the lineup that night, but the coach didn't talk. So beat writers from across the state, from as far away as Buffalo, were upset about this.
I couldn't, and so this is where my point, right? That's not a reason to be mad at the Islanders. That's like, honestly, good on Lou for doing that. I think like the Islanders played on Friday night. If you said to himself, you know what, we're making some transactions, rather than have the coach and the players talk to the media and have to worry about that before the game, I'll just let them focus on the game, which obviously paid off dividends the way the game went. Right. But he's like, I'll just take care of it today. And still, that wasn't good enough, because it violates some made up Professional Hockey Writers Association rule where you got to make the coach or players available. And it doesn't. Nope. What are you going to hear from Patrick Waugh before the game? Right. And it was a back-to-back too. So like, they're not even going to talk until 5 p.m. anyways. Yeah. Engvall's in, he's playing with McLean and Martin. So that's that. And like, what is as soon as that press conference is over, we'll never even think about it again. Can you remember one pregame press conference in your life? No, you can't. And that's the stuff that then, because the Islanders lose the game and everyone's frustrated, snowballs into this crazy thing when you're like waving your hands like, no, don't get mad at that stuff. Can we stop focusing on this made up thing that affects 3 people who aren't even fans? They're not Islander fans. The other stuff that we should be talking about and expressing some catharsis over is the fact that for the 5th time this season, the Islanders have not held on to a lead. I believe they've had a lead in every game except against the Stars and the Blues. So that's 6. That's 6 games out of 8. They're 3-3-2, and they've held on to one of those leads in regulation. And that was against the Avalanche. So there's some real stuff we should be focusing on, rather than the man, Andrew Gross didn't get his FaceTime with 2.5 minute FaceTime with Patrick Waugh before a game. Like, what is going on here? Yeah. And like you said, there's also attendance stuff that we can certainly talk about too. Yeah. Like there's some real stuff we can talk about, but instead, for some reason, everyone's focusing on this, and that's driving me up a wall. The team's driving me up a wall. And I was thinking about last night that every year, Islander fans, they are conditioned to go into every season with expectations that just will be watered down. Because no matter what, even if the Islanders had Connor McDavid and Mario Lemieux on their team, like, we would go into it being like, man, I just hope those guys don't get kidnapped or something, and they can make it to game 82 healthy, and we can make the playoffs, because that's what we are. We're a battered fan base and our expectations will always be lowered. And I know that there's a lot of fans that gives some consternation to. You should set the bar higher. Set the bar higher. This team should be contending for Stanley Cups. That would be lovely. But I go into every year and I think, I just hope this team doesn't drive me up a wall, because it's a hobby. It's something I devote my free time to, and too much free time to. And last year, it took them 6 games to drive us all up a wall from game 6 to game 81. And now the season before that, it was just about the same. And now they're driving us up a wall for another. It looks like another season just being driven straight up a wall by this team, and devoting way too much stress to this group.
I was going to say, I got bad news for you. They're already driving us all
up
a wall.
It took 3 games, you would say, maybe 4. Well, really only 1, right? The home opener against Utah. But then you're like, okay, it was game 1. See, they played okay against Dallas.
But it was game 1 that again felt like the 2 previous seasons. It felt like game 167 or whatever it was.
Yes, exactly. So took them really like a period and a half to just start driving us up that wall again. And there shall we stay.
Yeah, seems we will stay there. So we have a lot to talk about, both real and imagined. Before we dive into all that, reminder that we are on Patreon at patreon.com/IslandersAnxiety. Membership gets you ad-free episodes, bonus podcasts, written posts, and a whole lot more. Or you can join for free to get announcements and our weekly release calendar. So sign up today, patreon.com/IslandersAnxiety. Too much to talk about, both real and perceived. The Lou Wah thing is incredibly stupid. Like, I don't know why this is a thing now. People are saying that because Wah had said after the game that, bringing up Engvall and signing Matt Martin were basically Lou decisions. He said, I think Lou thinks that the physicality is important for us. Speaking about Matt Martin, I guess Lou thought it was a good moment for him about Engvall. How that creates a rift between 2 guys who have basically said the whole time that they're on the same page, I don't know. But that's the way people want to think. And really, it's only because this team is playing the same exact way it has played for the better part of the last 2 seasons.
Right.
It is not a successful formula. And they are losing games in the worst, most excruciatingly irritating, stupid fucking ways possible. Like, that's the only way to put it. And I want to lump the 2 home games from this week together, although they're very different games. Talking about the already near infamous 1-0 loss to Detroit on Tuesday, in which Alex Lyon made 29 saves and the Red Wings only had 11 shots. But Ilya Sorokin let in a goal. I mean, it was a totally fine one-timer from Patrick Kane in the first period. And that was all they needed. And Alex Lyon made 29 saves again, but there was no traffic. There was no screens. It was a very, very easy game for the Red Wings to play. There was never any pushback. And so that was already a problem. And then they win in New Jersey. We'll talk about that in a few minutes. And again, in a game they almost gave away. And then they come home Saturday. Yes, it's a back-to-back. Yes, it's against the Panthers, who are the defending Stanley Cup champions and are no picnic to play against ever. But they're spotted a 3-0 lead 12 minutes into the game for a number of reasons. We'll go through the details as we talk about it. And then just over the next 25 or so minutes, threw the game away. And it was tied going into the third. And then the Panthers just were like, no, we're going to win this. And they just ran away with it 6-3. And the Islanders really had nothing to show for it. And then at the end, started talking about, well, that we knew that was going to be, that's a good team, and they're going to push back, and they were going to come after us. Okay.
Incredible.
And your response is what? To just let them? That's your excuse? Is we knew they're a good team and they were going to push? Okay. Yeah. And what, do you have a friend? Like, everybody has a friend who's like a terrible storyteller. And he's like, oh, dude, this reminds me of a funny story. And then he'll tell a story, and then it's like, it ends with nothing. And you're like, yeah, where's the story? Like, that's this. Okay. Yeah, we knew they were going to come back. That's a really good team over there. Wah was like, whoa, somebody asked him what changed in the third period. Nothing changed. We knew they were going to push. Okay. So then what did you do about it? Nothing? You just let them take the game away from you? We're going to talk about a key sequence in the third period too. But this is the kind of game that makes people not want to come to your arena to watch you play. This is the kind of game that makes people ignore you outside of this market and inside of this market, frankly. This is the kind of game that makes fans feel like you're playing in an alternate universe that isn't part of the NHL. So I don't give a shit that the coach didn't want to talk to you before the game. I don't give a shit about these little petty bullshit things that are happening in and around this team, because I want to know why this team cannot hold a lead. Thanks to our friend Steve at Lighthouse Hockey, they have had 9 leads in games this year that they have not held. The one that they held was in the Colorado game that they won going away, but they had 3 1-goal leads against Utah, blew them both. They had 2 1-goal leads against Montreal, blew them both. They had 3 1-goal leads against the Devils, blew them both, and they had the 3-goal lead against the Panthers and obviously blew that. So what are the answers? What are we supposed to infer from all this? It's the same team doing the same things over and over and over again. And we're supposed to just buy stories like, well, we knew they were going to come back. Or like you mentioned before, Casey Cizikas said after the game, we have to address the blown leads as a group. That's something that starts in here and starts with, first of all, a conversation, going over where those mistakes are and what we can do better. That's something we've got to figure out. Casey, my friend, we love you. You guys should have figured this out 2.5 seasons ago. What happened last year? What happened the year before?
That's the stuff that drives you up. Well, we make fun of other fan bases. One in particular up north that they Zapruder film every bit of coach speak, pregame, postgame press conferences, talk about body language, accountability. Real Kipper and Bourne literally devote an hour a day basically to going through clips from the coach, from whether it's a practice, whether it's a charity golf tournament, whether it's a post-game press conference. They devote a lot of time to like doing it. And it's hilarious because it's also very ironic that we're bringing it up considering the huge controversy of the Islanders not letting Patrick Roy talk to the media. But they devote all this time, and when I listen to it, I get such a kick out of it because these guys aren't saying anything. Like Mitch Marner isn't saying anything, and they're like, "Ooh, what an answer!" He said it starts with me. Like that's what I want to hear. I'm like this, he just used a cliche, and you guys are taking it as if he just made you a promise that he's going to send you $10,000 or something, and you believe him. You're going to go
guarantee
home.
the Stanley Cup,
right? And then yesterday, when the game ended and I saw that from Casey Cizikas, the first person I thought about was Nick Kypreos. Because all I was thinking was, if Casey Cizikas said that and he was a Toronto Maple Leaf and he said that exact quote in this, like you just switched the two teams and the fan bases, Nick Kypreos his chair would just spin around because he would be so angry. He wouldn't even try to be moving it. Just the force of his anger, the chair would just start spinning around and he'd be like, "Are you kidding me? He's going to come here and say that? It's been 2.5 years, JB. 2.5 years of this." And I almost want to just talk to Kipper and Bourne and be like, "Can you just do one episode about the Islanders? I'll fill you in on all the context."
Yeah.
Because the Islanders don't have that. Like, they don't like Casey Cizikas and Patrick Roy, Lou Lamoriello, all of them. Everyone can say what they need to say, could say whatever they want to the media. And it kind of, like you said, it just goes nowhere because there's no market here, right? They're not the Yankees in the World Series where Adam Boone's going to say something about why he took Garrett Cole out and everyone's going to be up in arms. It's going to be on the front page of the Daily News and the Post, and Mike and the Mad Dog are going to talk about it. They're the Islanders. Like it's not going to be talked about at all. So there's no real like ramifications for it, except the only thing is it pisses us off, but we're in a bubble. Like it's not you and I getting mad isn't going to ever get to the team that this guy just noticed that they got to address the blown leads. Because even if he had said that and it was just a problem this season, we'd be like, dude, you did it in game 1 of this season. Then you did it again in game 4 of the season. Then again in like game 5 of the season. And then you played last night and did it. And what's crazy is there's talking about, these two games together and how there are real problems to address and fake problems to address. If you just put aside the fake problem of Patrick Roy and Lou Lamoriello not getting along, I'm sure they're having lunch together right now on like 7th Avenue in Garden City as we speak, or up in Roslyn or something. Maybe they're at Bryan and Cooper together. But if you put those fake problems aside and you just focus on the real problem, we're talking about the blown leads. But as you kind of just mentioned in passing, because it's been a few days and there's been other shit that's happened since, the Islanders were shut out for the 3rd time in 6 games against the Detroit Red Wings. Right. The first 6 games of the season, they were shut out 3 times. So on one hand, you have, Jesus Christ, this team can't score on some nights, and it's very obvious. It took, 6 minutes for it to become obvious that the Islanders were going to get shut out by Alex Lyon and the Detroit Red Wings on Tuesday night. How it couldn't have been more obvious. And then a couple nights later, the blown leads issue pops up. So you have these two gigantic problems to talk about.
Oh, also, by the way, Anthony Duclair is out 4 to 6 weeks.
Oh, right. Yes. Yeah.
Their
That's another
big
thing, right?
free agent acquisition won't be playing until Christmas,
Yeah. They have, so those are huge problems. And then if you dig deeper into those issues, if you want to, all right, well, let's go into the layers of the problems that they get shut out every other game so far. Like Matt Barzal hasn't scored against a goalie yet. And I know he's had some bad puck luck. He hit the post last night, whatever. Bo Horvat is also struggling to put the puck in the back of the net. He has scored a few goals, and he's getting chances, but he's not, getting the big goal at the big time. The power play is still a joke. Noah Dobson is up and down, and he was a non-factor against the Panthers.
Right.
The power play is a disaster. The penalty kill still can't be trusted. The first line, like you said, declares out, so it's a problem not of their own making, but he's hurt, and now it's Simon Holmstrom, who's been largely ineffective at 5-on-5 this season, playing on the first line. It's the fourth line has done zilch. Oliver Wahlstrom,
right?
Press box. Julien Gauthier experience lasted one game. One game. The Liam Foudy experience. Everyone's like, "Oh, this is the guy. This is the guy who's going to stick. He's going to make it." 2 games.
Right.
Hudson Fasching's back up. Matt Martin was signed to a PTO or signed off of his PTO. Like, we can go into these actual real problems to talk about, and the shit that's going on. But the people are distracted by a fake feud. It's crazy to me.
Yeah. 32 Thoughts this week spent about 10 minutes on sad panda Elias Pettersson and how his family members really need to stop telling him what people are saying about him on social media as he struggles early in this season. Nothing about the Islanders came up. The blown leads, the shutouts, the Duclair thing, none of that came up at all. And so I was thinking about it on the way home from the gym before we recorded here that, like, these guys are incredibly lucky that they are not like a more nationally watched team. Like, there are teams that get a lot of national exposure, not always the champions, but like, the Rangers are always on TV. The Caps are always on TV because of Ovechkin. Remember when NBC had the rights to the NHL, the Flyers were always on TV. The Sabres are, the Sharks and Blackhawks and Vegas is always on TV. Like, thank God for these guys that the Islanders aren't one of those teams, because if anybody else got any kind of inkling or wind of these patterns that have existed now for season after season, these guys would live very, very different lives, right? Like, they live in this bubble so they can get away with this garbage and nobody gives a shit except us and every other Islanders podcast, and podcast listener. But like, they get away with this. And so, like, we make fun of the Leafs and the Canadians and the Bruins and the Oilers for having these crazy, and Penguins for having these sort of crazy garbage sifting media contingents. But the Islanders are frankly very lucky that they don't have that. Yeah. Because if they did, their lives would be miserable.
You can put them like 29th on the hot seat-o-meter in terms of like where the pressure, external pressure comes from.
Right.
Maybe even lower. Like, there's very few markets that have it.
Seattle's under more pressure and they're 3 years old.
Right. Yeah. Like that's the beauty and the curse of this franchise. Right. And like why we love it is like you do feel like you're rooting for actual human beings when they're playing on the Islanders, right? They are New York Islanders, but they are Long Islanders. They're just a group of Long Islanders playing for the New York Islanders. They're going to be at Halloween parades with their kids on Thursday, right? Like, there's going to be the guy that's driving you up a wall because he can't hold the lead, but he's got his kid dressed as a bumblebee next to your kid as a bumblebee in Garden City or something. Like, it's fun to root for those guys because you feel like you're actually rooting for real people. Like you said, at the same time, you would love to just go into your car, call out Mike Francesa, and just rip into them because, hey, like, no, why is Noah Dobson passing the puck to Jesper Bratt with 30 seconds left? He plays for the Islanders. He's passing it to a player on the Devils in a crucial moment of the game. Like,
I know. It's crazy. One of the things that made me the most mad, and this is a perverse thing to say, I understand that, but after that game last night, all these stupid post-game quotes are coming out about how, like, oh, we knew the Panthers were going to come out. It was going to be a 60-minute game. Again, okay, so you did nothing about it. But then everybody finished their question period asking about how great is it to have Matt Martin back in the locker room. And everybody's like, oh, we love Marty. He's great. He's a great guy to have around. It's great seeing him here. And he's, of course, happy that he's here. And it made me mad. And I hate that because I love Matt Martin. And I want to be happy he's here. I want to be happy that he's part of this team again. But
I was happy.
Yeah.
Not because I was like, oh, wow, the Islanders are going to be better for it. But I was just like, oh, this is funny. This is very Islanders. It's happy. And they hadn't blown a 3-0 lead yet.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And I'm not saying that the blown game was Matt Martin's fault. I mean, again, he was barely on the ice. But I couldn't be happy about it because of the circumstances of the game. And actually, when they were up 3-0, I texted you in our group chat, I wish I could be happy. This is why I hate these guys. I can't even enjoy this. And one of our friends was like, why? And I was like, because they're going to blow it. And of course they did. And I take no credit for that whatsoever because I knew they were going to blow it. They gave the Panthers 48 minutes to come back and tie the game. And they did in half that time. And so this team has, forget about patterns. This is what this team is. And the fact that we are the only ones who know this drives me nuts. It does feel like we're taking crazy pills a little bit. By the way, Kipper and Bourne should definitely have you on their second hour where they do the national stuff. You got to talk to your boy Elliot Friedman and tell him to get you on that show because I think we don't need to hear from John Shannon again. We know about John. Thanks, John. We don't need to hear from John Shannon, Brian Lawton, and Doug McClain. We've heard from these guys already. They have nothing new to offer other than golf stories about shanking putts or something. We don't need to hear that anymore. Talk to somebody new. Talk to a team that's new. That's you. Because if they bring Butch Goring on, he's going to talk about golf too. So we don't need to hear about it.
Yeah, I never listen to the National Hour.
Yeah.
So
I do sometimes because
I'm
at home.
I understand because it's even during the Leafs hour when they have someone on, it's either someone who's stumping a book,
right,
or someone who's going to make a couple of funny golf jokes, or Doug McClain, and
right.
Not our friend Luke Fox Jukebox. I mean, when he comes on, it's must listen stuff because he gets to tell a story that didn't happen. Like when he was driving or was in Florida for the playoff series, and he's like, I got someone was yelling we want Florida at me. No, that didn't happen, Luke.
And children who are telling their dads how great Austin Matthews is.
Doesn't that C look great on him? On Austin, Dad? It's 1952, and
I know.
Anyway, the war just ended.
Let's break down these games real quick, starting with the Panthers games. And that's the first time I've ever used breakdown on this show. So there you go.
I know. What have we been doing in the last 26 minutes? Do we even talk about the games themselves? Or
no,
just in a big picture screed.
Well, there's really no reason to because everybody watched it. Again, they were up 3-0. Jennifer Cholowski scores a minute and a half into the game, and you think, wow, maybe they're going to actually walk out of here with a win. That'd be pretty cool. And then it was Palmieri with a tip, and then Nelson off a rebound, and everything's going great. And then a bad change leaves who but Sam Reinhart by himself on the Islanders' end of the ice. Of course, he scores. Wasn't a bad period. They're up 3-1, not too bad. But then the second period is mostly Florida. Matthew Tkachuk literally elbows Semyon Varlamov in the melon, then shovels the puck under him, makes it 3-2. And then Mackie Samoskevich scores his first NHL goal, another Islanders classic.
Never happens. Yeah.
Looks like friggin' Denny Savard coming around the back of the net at speed, right?
God,
that first
play
NHL goal?
That play, if there's a play to just be perfectly emblematic of how the season's going, it's that one. Because I watched that play, and I had time to process the entire thing before he scored. As he was, doing it, I was like, oh, he's going to try to go around the net and stuff this one in because he's a rookie and he thinks it can work because maybe it worked in junior, but he's going up against an NHL defenseman right here. And behind that NHL defenseman is a really good NHL goaltender. But that NHL defenseman, Noah Dobson, was scrolling Instagram, checking out a story real quick. So he gets pantsed and he goes around the net. And even then I'm like, okay, Dobson didn't slow that guy down at all because he's got his phone out. Whatever, maybe next shift he'll leave it on the bench. Maybe he can hand it to Tommy Abilene for a little bit and say, just, hey, Tommy, can you just hold my phone, or charge my phone back there like you would do to a bartender. But you know what, the goalie's there, and this is a junior move. This never works for anybody because there's no real chaos. He's the only Florida Panther in the offensive zone. And Semyon Varlamov is a veteran goaltender, has seen this a million times and won't ever get it's in the net. Yeah, that makes sense because that's all the stuff that shouldn't happen is happening against this team. And I would say after the Sam Reinhart goal, I was like, all right, well, I expect this to be a lot, even when they, like you said, they're up 3-0. You can't even enjoy it, right? This is suspended animation. It's robbing of joy. It's all that stuff because of the scars that we're dealing with right now. Hey, you want to stake the Calgary Flames to a 3-0 lead right now? Those fans are going to be bouncing off the walls, even though the Flames are not on paper better than the Islanders, but they can trust their team. Like you can trust them because they're an NHL team, and NHL teams should be able to hold on to 3-0 leads, especially when it should be being drilled into them not to blow leads anymore and play tighter because they keep blowing leads already in the beginning of the season after blowing them all last season and all season the season before that. But no, you can't trust them. You don't believe in them. But even after that first goal from the Panthers, it's like it's going to be tight, but it's 3-1. They played a good period. I can't be mad. I can be nervous, but I can't be mad. But after that first career NHL goal from Samoskevich, with Dobson on his phone and Varlamov in the third row, basically.
Yeah, he wasn't anywhere near.
I was like, okay, so why do I even have to watch the rest of this game?
Yeah,
because it's just going to make me more mad and more mad. And the peak of my anger actually came when the Islanders were on a power play.
Okay,
I don't even remember which one because they had a couple in the third period. I don't remember which specifically one it was. I think the Panthers had just taken the 4-3 lead.
Yeah,
and I was like, you know what? In my head, I thought the mark of a good team is when something you face a little bit of a push, things aren't going right, but you get a break. And Sam Bennett takes a bad penalty. First of all, the play, he's chased down Adam Pelech. And I was like, where's Adam Pelech going? He's like running. If there were no boards, Adam Pelech would have just kept skating. He would have kept skating all the way to Belrose. Like he was so scared to have the puck in that moment with Sam Bennett barreling down on him, and he gets bailed out because Bennett takes a holding penalty, which was a penalty. And every good team in the NHL scores on that power play. Yeah. And maybe if they don't score, they tilt the ice back, and they're going to start building their way back in this game and go, okay, we got 10 more minutes to score. Let's build off that. The Islanders played that power play like, hey, if we score here, it's going to be a bad thing because the Panthers will probably score again, and it won't even matter. Yeah. That was the most mad I've been this season so far, which is crazy because there's so many other instances to choose from, including when they got shut out for the third time in 6 games a couple nights before, or when Noah Dobson passed the puck to Jesper Bratt to set him up for a game-tying goal with a minute and a half left in a game against the Devils. That was the maddest I was on that power play because that was just it was cowardly stuff.
I like how you use 3 examples from the same week. Like that's what's so fun, right? These are 3 examples from the season.
Right. We can't dig back all the way back.
No, like, and I agree with you. Like, each one made you progressively more and more mad. And like, that power play. So, okay, you're tied at 3. You know, forget about what happened before. Yeah, the game isn't lost. You've got 20 minutes to get this thing back. Sam Bennett scores off really a bounce off of Varlamov, bounce off of Bennett's leg or something, and in. Okay, you're down 4-3, but then you immediately get a power play. And this is a point, and like, forget about the teams, forget about the situations. Just think about 2 hockey teams right here. One is now down 4-3 and is immediately given a power play. The expectation is that team has been given new life. They have been given an opportunity to tie this game back up moments after they had just been down. And not only did the Islanders not score on that power play, they got booed by their own home fans on this terrible power play because they weren't doing anything. It wasn't that they had a great power play and, Spencer Knight stood on his head or, a puck went wide or hit a post or something. Not that necessarily would have made it better, but at least it would have been something, right? These guys didn't do anything. And then what makes matters worse is as soon as that power play expires, the Panthers get a power play. And within 1 minute, Matthew Tkachuk wires the puck home. It's 5-3 Panthers and the game is over. So in a span of about 4 minutes, you went from tied to losing to out of reach. Yeah. And you're an NHL team and you're now going to tell us that, oh yeah, we knew they were good. We knew it was going to be a tough game because they're a real good team. Or we really need to explore what's going on with these blown leads. How is that going to make us feel any better? What is that going to do for us? And then, of course, Gustav Forsling hits a 190-foot empty net goal. The Islanders had another power play. They pulled Varlamov. They had a 6-on-4, and then nothing happened. They didn't do anything. What are you doing? 6 unanswered goals by the Panthers. They went 0-for-3 on the power play. They went 1-for-2 on the penalty kill, which I guess is a victory for them. And, Varlamov wasn't great, but he certainly had no help, especially in the second and third period. So, I just don't know what to make of all this. It's unbelievable that these guys can look themselves in the mirror game after game after game after doing this shit over and over again. And again, this is in a week in which you were up, 3-2 with a minute to go. Your quote unquote number one defenseman hands the puck to a guy on the other team to ties the game. You win in overtime. Nice shot, nice play by Barzal and Horvat. That's great. But again, you blew a bunch of leads in that game and had to go to overtime to win it against a guy who was letting in goal after goal, has not been great this season. And 2 days before that, you got shut out after allowing 11 shots because you could not for the third time this season.
Yep. Yeah.
What
you keep saying
doing?
You keep calling them an NHL team, which they are.
Technically,
it's not just an NHL team. They're supposed to be a competent, good playoff NHL team. We're not talking about the rebuilding San Jose Sharks or the Islanders from 10 years ago, where you're like, okay, I'm expecting this because they're trotting out the ghost of Steve Stamkos for these huge moments, and he's obviously well past it. He's just trying to calm the waters. But this is supposed to be a competent NHL team. That's what it is. Frankly, the Islanders, if you were to go through, and we did this exercise last year. I don't know at what point we did it in the season, but we did it a couple times. And if you were to go through game by game, you could make a really salient case that the Islanders, who were 3-3-2 with a 500 points percentage through 8 games, should be 6-1-1.
Yeah.
Right. The Utah game should have won that. They had a lead. They got a lead they were staked to a lead with 3 minutes left in the game or 2 minutes left, and still found a way to blow it and lost in overtime. Dallas game, lost 1-1. Beat the Avalanche 2-1. The Blues game, they should have won that game. That should be 3-1. The Canadiens game, which they blew leads all over the place, including a late one in the third period, and needed to go into the 9th round of a shootout that every team in the NHL is putting up 8 goals against the Canadiens. Yeah. And the Islanders needed to take them to the 9th round of a shootout. That would make them 4-1. They held the Red Wings to 11 shots and still found a way to lose in regulation. They should have won that game too. That's 5-1. They should have beat the Devils 6-1. The Panthers, they were up 3-0, 7-1. So then, if you just account for, every NHL team's going to blow games that they should have won, maybe once or twice every 12 or 15 games, you can say, okay, let's throw them one other loss. So 6-2. The Islanders should have 6 wins on the season if they were a regular, normal, stable NHL team that knew how to manage situations.
Right.
And instead, they're sitting at 3-3-2 and now have, honestly, we usually look ahead to the next week in the second half, but I'll do it right now. They play the Ducks, the Blue Jackets, and the Sabres before playing the Rangers next week. They need to win all 3 of those games. Those, I hate to. We do tongue in cheek joke around about must win games and make fun of the when people overreact to this. But and I'm not even saying for points in the standings, which obviously is a huge part of it. But the other reason is they're just better than all 3 of these teams. They're very winnable games, and you're now coming off a week where you handed away 3 more points, and the week before that you handed away another point, and the week before that you handed away another point. So you're handing away. They probably handed away 5 or 6 points this season. You need to go make those up by just beating these teams. And guess what? I won't. I'll be in a much better mood if they do it, but it's not like I'll feel any better because this is where you're supposed to be. We're supposed to go into a week against the Ducks, the Blue Jackets, and the Sabres and feel, they'll win these games. These are winnable games. And that's not where I'm at. I'm at the point where you are, where they're going to go up 2-0 on the Ducks early, and Brock Nelson will score. He'll look great, and we'll be like, oh man, I love Brock. And then you kind of snap back to reality, like, oh shit, there's still 30 minutes left in this game. I just better get ready for overtime, hopefully.
Right.
So,
yeah. I could already hear the cannons going off in Columbus, right? I could already hear it. I could hear them because it's going to happen. And it's going to happen late in the third period when the Blue Jackets take a lead because some kid who got called up from, the whatever, what is their AHL team?
I think the Cleveland Lake Monsters, Lake
something
Erie
like that, yeah,
or something,
or Springfield or whatever is going to score, and then you're in Buffalo, which is a place I feel like they haven't won in years.
That was one of the worst losses last year. When they lost 4-0 there after they lost. They had that great road trip out west, and we were like, all right, they lost to the Kings to end it, but we trust these guys now.
Yeah.
They'll go into Buffalo, a team that's playing out the string, and they'll definitely put forth it's already 4-0, and it's like 30 minutes into the game, and they're not, and they're the Islanders. So that's the other thing too here, which is really irritating to think about. When the Islanders were up 3-0 against the Panthers, it was a matter of time, right?
Right.
We all thought it. I think every Islander fan probably thought it. When the Islanders were down 1-0 to the Detroit Red Wings, it was, how are they going to climb this mountain? They're losing. They're losing in a game. How are they going to come back?
Well, because they weren't doing anything to make it more than one. Like they were literally playing catch with Alex Lyon.
Yeah.
There wasn't a single person standing in front of Alex Lyon at any point in that game to distract him or screen him or get him moving side to side. It was not. They were just playing catch with this guy. It was either in his chest or his glove all game long. And it wasn't until, I wasn't quite like, oh man, how are they going to do this? But I was like, all right, it's 1-0. All they need is like a bounce, a shot. But it just, every time it was shot, all I saw was Alex Lyon. There wasn't anybody standing in front of him. What are you doing? And this is where I get really upset. We haven't talked that much about the Devils game, but again, they blew the lead. The only two things that matter are Dobson gives the puck away, and then they had to go win in overtime. The shots, by the way, were 11-4 Devils in the third period. So again, as well as they had played for the first two, they just played like assholes in the third period and got what they deserved, basically.
Because that's what a normal NHL team, when they're down in a game in which they're like fighting tooth and nail to get back in, they end up tilting the ice.
Yeah.
That was the thing that was driving me nuts about the Panthers game. Well, another thing I should say, when we talk a lot about how we'll watch like a competent power play, like when you watch the Oilers or the Avalanche, like this looks like a different sport, right?
Yeah.
When the Panthers were down 3-0 and they were like chasing and they were like rabid dogs on a bone against the Islanders to come back 3-0, and they have every excuse in the world to just kick their feet up for the next few weeks and be like, we'll start feeling our way into the season around Thanksgiving because we won the Stanley Cup last year and we went to the Stanley Cup the year before that. Right. They decided, we're just gonna give them hell. We're just gonna give these guys fucking hell, and that's what they did. And I was watching Sam Bennett and just like 8 different Boquists.
Yeah, where do these other Boquists come from?
Mackie Sabaskevich or whatever his name is, and some guy named Giles.
Giles, yeah.
I think he plays second base for the Atlanta Braves, but they just called him up for this game. And I'm watching these guys chase down Islanders. They were just chasing them down. I'm like, that's looks like a different sport from what the Islanders play. I know. When's the last time I've seen an Islander chase down an opponent defenseman? Right. Yeah. I can't remember that. It looked like a different sport. The Islanders they're just an exhibition team. They're barnstormers. They are, when the 1927 Yankees would go tour Japan to play baseball, these games don't matter, right? Like, we're just going to show up. We'll give it a good old college try, and then we'll go home. Brutal.
My theory on these guys is, I don't want to use the L word here, not the show, but like the L word of lazy. I don't want to use that word. But what it looks like to me when I watch the Islanders play is that they are trying to find some sort of autopilot level that they can get to that will just sort of get them wins without having to think too much, and this is not that. Like, again, the play you talked about before, the Adam Pelech, like, where was he going? There was another play. I think it was different. And it was just before the Panthers' other goal where like one of the Islanders defensemen was like skating backwards into the crease, into their own slot. And I was like, where is he going? What are you doing? And this happens on the power play all the time. Like, they're clearly so focused on, okay, you stand there and I stand here. And then, now the goal is the puck is in the net. Like, okay, but hockey's more like jazz than anything else, right? Any other sport. Like, there's a lot of room for interpretation and improvisation. And like, if you're just going to be like, I got to stand here, the coach told me to stand here, I'm going to stand here, they're just going to figure it out and they're going to score around you. And I just don't understand why this keeps coming up. And like, Barzal is a good example. He's got 0 5-on-5 points. He's got 1 empty net goal and I think 2 power play assists this year. And it's like, every time this guy breaks it, he works hard to like steal the puck, and he breaks into the zone, and then he clearly has no idea what he's doing. Just none. And he's waiting for guys to show up. There's no plan. There's just, okay, well, what am I supposed to do? What am I supposed to do? Oh, now the puck is going the other way. It's just over and over and over again. I can't understand why this is.
I have a
Where did
theory on that too. Like
Well, let me hear it.
that, and Thomas Hickey pointed this out too, and I noticed it against Dallas, and I was like, damn, they're giving Barzell no room, no room. And then he would try to find Horvat, and Horvat also had no room.
Yeah.
And at that point, it was Duclair who was doing fine, and the line looked pretty competent, right?
Right.
But now it's with Duclair out, like they're just like, okay, we're gonna make sure that 13 and 14 have very little space.
Yeah.
I don't even know who that guy wearing number 10 is. I've never heard of a Simon Holmstrom before. If they pass him the puck, so be it. If he beats us, tip our cap. We'll try to find out who he is after the game. So my thinking here is that teams last year, when both Horvat and Barzell, they were great together, they were clicking. Other teams figured out, oh my God, we got 5 guys on the ice. They got 2 guys on this line that are very dangerous. Maybe a third if that number 8 guy isn't taking a selfie. Like, so they got 3 dangerous guys on the ice if they're playing together. We'll use our 5 guys to cover those dangerous guys and make life hell for them. And if the other guy that we've never heard of beats us, so be it. And it's working because those guys they don't have space. Like Barzell, it seems like is getting man marked, like he's getting tagged in every game. And what's another thing that drives me up a wall here is I see it and I'm like, God damn it, that's too bad. When other teams would be like, okay, how do we beat this? Because we have to. It's not like, oh man, they figured us out. Let's throw our hands up, go home to our families. It's all right. Like we got to now adjust to this. And the Islanders don't ever do that. They don't ever like adjust to another team adjusting to them. It's, oh man, we blew the lead. What are we going to do? It happens. Right. We'll try again next time. The Ducks are coming into town. Maybe we can hold it against them. No, just they're pushing. We said this last year all the time. Oh man, they made a push. Push back. There's 2 teams on the ice. One team can push back against the other one, even if they are also pushing back. Just do it. I feel very WFAN fan, phone caller at like 1 a.m. to Steve Somers right now, but that's kind of where we're at with the team. They're driving. I wouldn't call us rational fans, but like I know a lot of rational fans, and they're driving us all to the point where we're like, okay, trade everybody, trade everyone. I don't care. Fire the coach, fire the GM, trade everyone. We're making up rifts between the general manager and the coach, who by all accounts get along famously. There's attendance issues. Everyone's mad about the parking. Like this is full blown like WFAN. Giant Stadium just opened and everyone hates it. It feels like, and Mike Francesa saying, I saw the plans before they built that stadium, and I told the governors of both states, don't do it. That's where we're at right now. Everyone is so mad at this team, and it's going to start showing up in a lot of different ways. Like it's not just going to show up on Twitter when people are like, fuck this team. It's going to show up in the attendance, and it's going to show up in the way they're covered again. And the fact that everyone's gonna say, "I told you the Islanders were mid." Yeah, they are. Yep. They are mid right now. You were right, and it sucks. But that's where we're at.
Yeah, no, it's true. And again, if this was getting more attention elsewhere, maybe there would be more calls to change it. But as of right now, we are on an island, as unfortunate pun intended. And all we can do is sit and watch until somebody figures out some way to change this team that we've just become sick of. We've just become sick of these guys. Like had the team stayed together and won, then we would take a bullet for these guys. But they stay together and they just keep losing in irritating, annoying ways. And so now I'm not surprised people are like, get rid of all these guys.
And in ways where if you were to bring in another fan from even another sport and be like, this is how they're losing, like, they can't keep doing that. You say, you wouldn't believe it. You wouldn't believe it. But they can, and they have. That's the scary part. It's like they are this super unique way of blowing stuff. They're doing all the time. Like they've found a way to make the super, super unique trend a thing for 2.5 seasons. Most teams go into a new season and be like, we got to work on that. We got off to too many slow starts in the first period last year. Oh man, wow, look at that. The Minnesota Wild are now like plus 22 in the first period because they addressed that issue and they changed it and they made a plan for it. Whereas the Islanders like, man, that's just how it goes. We'll just we'll take it. We'll try to learn from it and do better next time.
I don't know. All right, we're going to take a break, come back, and try and make ourselves feel a little bit better with a little Master Leaf Theater and some other various topics. So come back on the other side. All right, thanks. And now, a word from our sponsors. First is always VintageIceHockey.com, where you can get t-shirts, hoodies, jerseys, and more featuring over 100 classic hockey logos. Vintage Ice Hockey now carries a full line of Islanders Anxiety merch featuring our blue and orange brain logo, as well as our Al Arbor and the Island shirts. And as always, our portion of the sales go directly to the Center for Dementia Research. That is VintageIceHockey.com. Try wines from the Pinot Project. They offer a Rosé, a Pinot Grigio, and a Pinot Noir that was named a Top 100 Best Buy by Wine Enthusiast magazine. All are delicious, priced at less than $15 a bottle, and available at local wine shops and at UBS Arena. Learn more at thepinotproject.com. Please drink responsibly. Okay, so we already talked about the Islanders week coming up. Obviously, it's Ducks, Blue Jackets back-to-back, Sabres Friday night, and then Rangers on Sunday. We'll lump that in. We're going to record Sunday night in the evening after the Rangers game, so it'll be hot and fresh for you next week. Win the games. That's all I can tell you. These teams all have the same amount of points. If the Islanders think that they're better than these teams, win the games and show us, and maybe do something. And if they did that, maybe that we will see an uptick in attendance when they come back and play at home once again, which actually isn't for a while. It's let's see, their next home game after that. So the Blue Jackets, Sabres, and Rangers games are all on the road, and then they're back Tuesday the 5th against the Penguins. That's their next game at UBS Arena after the Ducks game. So win those games, and maybe people will start coming out. This became a thing last week again against the Red Wings. There was only about 12,000 people there. The seats were noticeably pretty empty for Saturday night against the Panthers. Obviously, the Yankees are in the World Series right now, but I only think that excuse goes so far. I think what you're seeing now is the product of a number of things. UBS Arena is a beautiful venue that is very expensive to go to and to park and to eat at. And I think people would be willing to pay those prices if the team was good and the team was going to win. And what you're seeing now is basically a vote of fan confidence. Fans are not confident that this team is going to win these games. And guess what? So far, they've been right because they've had 2 home games and they lost them both. Well, 3 home games and they lost all of them. So why on earth would I spend $1,000 to take my spouse and my kids to a game just to watch the Islanders lose in an excruciating fashion? And if you are Scott Malkin, who does not live, obviously, congrats Scott Malkin on building Belmont Village. That's apparently open now, the retail village. So I guess we got that going for us. Doesn't help the Islanders at all. If you're John Ledecky sitting, in his normal seats behind the end glass over there, I think you need to start having some serious discussions about what the hell's going on out here in Belmont, because this ain't right. This just isn't right. These guys did not spend $1 billion to build a state-of-the-art arena just so 12,000 people can watch the Islanders get shut out 1-0 by Alex fucking Lyon. Like, I'm sorry, no offense to Alex Lyon, but like, come on. Like, what are we doing here? And the funny thing is, and I was thinking about this, like, we've been down the arena, the attendance issues before. I mentioned this off the top. Obviously, during the Coliseum era and the Barclays Center era, we talked about games being, sparsely attended for a lot of different reasons. This is different because the team's not moving anywhere. They're not going anywhere. This isn't like when they didn't draw people to the Coliseum. It was like, oh my God, they're going to move to Kansas City next week. That fortunately never happened. And when it was, at Barclays Center, it was like, oh my God, nobody wants to take the train out to Brooklyn. That's stupid. Oh, well, now they're going to move to Belmont Park. Well, that'll fix that. This is purely a performance issue because people will spend the money if they know they're going to have a fun time. And part of that fun time means winning the fucking game. Score a goal. There's been a lot of F-bombs dropped in this episode, and I think for good reason, because we're kind of pissed off. Like, I don't know how else to put it. Win the games. Instead of, like, beat writers being like, wow, where is everybody? Why didn't you ask, why can't they hold a penalty? Why can't they kill a penalty? Why can't they hold a lead? Why are they playing like assholes in every third period? Why are these guys like I wrote this on Twitter, like what these guys do is they take a lead, they work hard to get a lead, and then all of a sudden they start treating the puck like it's a quail egg. You ever seen a quail egg? It's tiny, it's very delicate. Like you got to be very careful around. It usually comes in like special packaging with like, hay or the, that kind of like Easter grass or whatever it is. You have to be very careful. Why are these guys doing this every single game? Fix it, and people will start coming to the games. It's very simple. Give them a product that they want to watch, and they'll go. But what do I know? I'm sitting at home on my couch getting mad at Patrick Waugh's press conferences. So I don't know. But I don't know. Yeah. Where are you at with this attendance issue? It is funny that it's different than the attendance issues we spent a long time talking about earlier. Yeah, exactly.
So there's a huge difference between how the media, hockey media and sports media talk about attendance issues and how like they're actually grounded in reality. Right. Because the answer is as simple as win the games, right? Yeah. Like that's all it is. It's the same reason why markets work or don't work in any sport. If the team is good, people will come watch the team. They want to be in the building, and they'll support that team. Man, it's weird that the Atlanta Thrashers didn't stick around in Atlanta, even though it's a great sports town. Well, the Atlanta Thrashers made the playoffs once, and they got swept in that playoff series. So that's probably why things didn't go their way. And obviously, there's reasons why they weren't good, but if they had won, people would show up. Why do you think Nashville is so successful? Why do you think Tampa Bay just got sold for? I keep hearing about it. I don't want to keep hearing about teams and like their valuation that's like all 32 Thoughts has become now is what like the word billion gets thrown around. But Tampa Bay gets sold for $1 billion because they're good. That market, they used to play in like a mall. If you watch old Lightning games, there's a curtain that was draped down in their old arena, and it would like fans would be cut off from like the rest of the building, and that's where they played in. Like that team was just sold for $1 billion because they won. So it's so simple that if the team does well, Islander fans will show up. That was the case at Nassau Coliseum too. Right. I was at games in the old in the era of the old attendance issues. I would go to Islander games. There would be no joke 4,000 people in there. It would be announced as like 8.2 thousand, but there would be 4,000 people there. You could sit in any section you wanted. Yeah. There would be some section in the 300s where there would be 0 to 2 people in it. There was nobody there because the team wasn't winning. Then the team started winning and people came to the games. If you watched even the games like in the 2006-07 season we always talk about, if you watch those last few games when the Islanders had a shred of hope to make the playoffs, people came. The buildings were loud because there was something going on. Just win and the attendance issues sort themselves out. But the way this is going to be painted is going to be very different from I think the people who will write the articles and set the conversation. But it's that simple. And yeah, like UBS Arena, I love going there. You love going there. It's beautiful. But it's really expensive. It's expensive. And if you're going to justify paying that money, how about a goal? Yeah. Like, it's not that hard. It's not it's not hard to see why this is going in that direction. And anyone who starts making fun of the Islanders for attendance issues can, shove it, because every team would be going through the same exact issue outside of maybe 3 who are in just gigantic markets. If this was happening with their team, it's just what it is. Like all the
teams that wouldn't be going through it are the ones with a lot more sort of corporate sponsorship. Right. So like the Leafs, Oilers, Rangers, Flyers, like teams that have that base, the Islanders really don't have. Wouldn't be going
exactly. Here's 4 free tickets. You just sit in the first row, so it looks like a building's full. Bring a client or 2.
Exactly.
Like that. They're gonna go through it right now. Like that Ducks game on Tuesday night.
Oh, it's gonna be
It's going to look like Rick DiPietro's 2005, 2006 Islanders taking on the Nashville Predators on like a mid-March game where they're already out of the playoffs. Brad Lukowich patrolling the blue line.
I was going to say it's going to be like 1996 Islanders Ducks, Guy Bear, Bob Corkum, on the ice for the Ducks, kind of so, jade and purple.
They should wear the eggplant jerseys just to match what the crowd is going to look like. And
I'm almost certain I saw a lot of those games back then when Ziggy Palffy was still on the team. That was when it was 4,000.
And it's going to be a thing. But just prepare yourself for it, because there's no way that people are going to say, I can stay home watch the Yankees on one TV and the Islanders on the other, or
Right.
just completely ignore the Islanders like a rational human being. And instead of paying, and look, the tickets I almost went to the Red Wings game, and
Hmm.
because the tickets were so cheap, I almost just bought a single for like $20.
Hmm.
And the entire time, Emily's like, "Oh, are you going to go to the game?" And the entire day, I was like, I just don't
Right.
know. Like, I don't know if it's going to be worth it. She's like, "Oh, it's expensive." I was like, "No, it's not that. It's like, I don't know if it's just going to be worth going, getting mad about driving home and coming home, being sad again, and then going to
Right.
bed sad.
Yeah.
Like,
And
I can just do it from home." And it was a great decision, obviously.
yeah.
Like, I saved $30 and didn't have to drive sad. I just had to be sad on the couch.
Yeah.
Um, and on Tuesday night, I'm going to look at tickets that are probably even cheaper than that, and I'm going to say, is it worth it? And almost always, like, I'll find a reason to go to these games or to believe in the team. I rarely give up. I'm not giving. There's no talk about giving up on a season
Mm.
on this podcast. We're mad about it, but we're not giving up on it. But I'll stick with like I'll try to convince myself of the calculus that this team could still make a playoff or
Mm.
make something out of season no matter what, and go to a game and G myself up for that game. But right now, I just don't want to go. Like, I don't want to go watch them struggle like this and
Yeah.
make me upset in the building, and like, not glorifying myself in any way. But if like me and you are thinking this way,
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
about fans who don't care about this team as much. We're just like, yeah, I like
Yeah.
the Islanders. Like, they're one of my teams. There's seats for
Mm.
$12. Like, they're probably like, I don't really feel like going. Like, Yankees are on. It's gonna
Right.
be bad.
Yeah.
Tuesday night, it's gonna be a story. The beat writers are already pissed because they didn't get their allotted 3 minutes with
Right.
Patrick Watt. You know what? I'm and we Lou Lamoriello is such a funny spite guy. I would
Mm.
love it if on Tuesday before the Ducks, he sends out like Tommy Abilene, Dennis Cholowski, and like Kyle McLean or something to do
Yeah.
the three guys to talk to the media before the game. That'd be
really
hilarious.
funny.
But yeah, people are already the media's mad at the Islanders for one reason. Fans are mad at the Islanders for a lot of different reasons. And yeah, they have no one to blame but themselves. So
Yeah. Pretty
like,
much.
it's and then they had a chance to get a shred of credibility back by being like, yeah, that sucked. It wasn't good enough. We need to figure this shit out. And instead, we're like, it's a good team over there.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
What did you guys expect us to hold on to that 3-0 lead? What, are you crazy? That's the defending Stanley Cup champions over there.
That's basically what they're saying. It just I couldn't believe my ears when both Wah and Lee were like, "Wow, that's a good team over there."
But be sure to come out to the game.
Okay, yeah, exactly. The word I would use, and then we'll move on to the topic after this, but the word I would use to describe the Islanders right now is dreary. I'm not saying that because Halloween is the end of this week. It's dreary. It's a dreary existence.
Yeah.
You're going to come to a game. Maybe they'll take a lead. Maybe they won't. They'll definitely blow the lead, which is coming because that's the way it works. And then they'll lose. And then, you got to drive home or walk. First of all, you got to walk for a mile to your car. It's dark. It's cold. Drive home. It's just not, this is not an exciting, vibrant night out with a team that is focused on winning. This is a dreary, possibly, 50-50 coin flip. Maybe they win, maybe they don't. Oh, they blew another lead kind of thing. And it doesn't really make any sense to me. I just don't understand why they can't figure that out and why nobody has said anything before Casey Cizikas yesterday, apparently, that, we really need to address this. Yeah.
And
somebody should address this.
The way he said it was like look, it's on the agenda, right? Let's get through Halloween and the holidays. Like, this is a busy time for all of us here, right? Like, we all got families. You guys got families.
If this
let us get through it.
Right. If this team was a, an offensive juggernaut, and like we talked about this a couple weeks ago, like, what is their offensive game plan? We don't know what it is. They don't seem to have one. Some teams are power play merchants, and some teams are just rush teams, and some teams are like grind it out teams. If there was something to hold on to, that this is what this team was, then I think people would be more willing to come. But until there is, it's just a dreary kind of weird alternate universe existence of like, why am I even going to, I'm just going to go there, get mad about a game that ultimately doesn't matter because nobody gives a shit about this. And I'm going to watch these guys who play like they don't care do what they've done for the last 2 seasons, which is blow leads, can't kill penalty, the whole list. It's just I don't understand. So, it's funny to me that, like you said, I mean, we've heard nothing about this from the team. Obviously, we won't. They apparently sent out, I guess, a renewal thing or maybe like a survey this weekend after the loss of the Panthers, which is like great timing, guys. Although that's automated, so what are you gonna do? But like, it's funny to me that like they're gonna pitch this. A lot of writers are going to pitch like, what's going on? Why aren't people coming out? Look at the team. Look at what they're doing. Why would people come out and watch this?
Right.
The answers are right in front of you. They can't they're 30th on the penalty kill and 28th on the power play. Why would I come out and watch that? They've blown 9 leads in 10 games. They've gotten shut out 3 times. Like, what are we talking, including 2 1-0 shutouts? It just doesn't make any sense. And maybe winning the next 3 or 4 games in a row will do a lot if they beat Anaheim, Columbus, and Buffalo, and then roll into the Garden, where ironically they usually have a good run of luck. And then before you won 4 in a row. Hey man, that's good. The Penguins suck now. Come home, win that game. And like, I'm asking for a lot. I'm asking them to win 5 games in a row. But I
don't even know if you are. Like, you would be if it was like the Islanders were 6-2, and we're like, I mean, it's not good enough. Win 5 more in a row. They're not. Yeah. You're not. You're asking them to do something that teams do. They win a bunch of games in a row. The Islanders did it at the end of the season. They went 8-1-1. These guys, same guys, with the exception of Max Siplikov now in for Cal Clutterbuck. These guys went 8-1-1, and the most important stretch of the season, they did it. Like, just go do it again. Do it again, because now we're at that point where it sounds like it's easier said than done, or too simplistic or whatever especially in this age of being a fan, where you got to present like a legal evidence for why you were not allowed to win a hockey game.
Right.
Just go do it. Go win these games. Beat the Blue Jackets, beat the Ducks, beat the Sabres, beat the Rangers, and all of a sudden guess what? People show up to that Penguins game.
Right.
They'll show up. Wow, it's weird. Over the next a lot of people here.
Yeah, right. Over the next 2 weeks, not only do they have Anaheim, Columbus, and Buffalo, obviously the Rangers are pretty good, but then they have the Penguins and Senators, and then the Devils again on Saturday the 9th. Like, that's 7 winnable games in a row. Right. Even the good teams in that grouping aren't that good. That's 7 winnable games. How many games do we think that the Islanders are going to win of that 7?
Oh my! Well,
if they get 3, that's like a shocking number. If they win 4, okay, you win.
Right. And you know what? It's also, this is the stretch before the Western Canada stretch.
Yes. Yeah. In the middle of the month.
There's always, and not saying that the Western Canada stretch is a stretch of doom, but it's always this part of the calendar where you're like, they gotta make some hay before they disappear for a week and a half. Like, they just have to do it, because you go out west and you come back and things could be so different because you're just gone. And you play a bunch of games against a bunch of teams that are good on the road, thousands of miles away, and you play late at night, and all of a sudden the season looks very different from when it was when you left. And if you remember last year, we were like, make sure you fucking take care of business before you go play the Kraken and the Flames and all that shit. And they didn't. And then they went out there and they just kept losing. That was like 11 games in a row. I don't remember how many games in a row it was at one point, but they kept blowing leads. Like, they blew that lead against the Kraken. They blew the lead against the Flames, and then they finally won a shootout against somebody to get a win. Oliver Wahlstrom, of all people, scored a shootout winner to end the losing streak. Like, that's where we're heading again. We're heading into the same exact situation somehow, where we're like, oh my God, they're going to go away for these 2 weeks in Western Canada. It's going to feel like I'm being shipped overseas. Like, it's brutal. It's just, but they can fix it. Like, they still have time to fix it before they pick their head up and get before that New Jersey game, and they're like, we gotta get ourselves right before we go out west. No, you needed to do that before the Ducks game. You needed to do that before the freaking Red Wings game. Like, this is what this team does, is they don't, it's
Yeah.
the reactive versus being proactive.
I was going to say that,
right?
they retroactively react to
Yes,
everything
yeah.
as if they didn't have a choice, so they didn't have a
What were we
hand
supposed
in
to
the game.
do?
Yeah.
Those games are in the past, but they weren't in the past when they were when they weren't in the past. Like, just go win them. Just go win these
Yeah.
stupid freaking games. Beat
That's
the
really
shit
funny.
out of the Ducks on Tuesday night. Then beat
Yeah, seriously.
It's almost a gift that they're playing a back-to-back.
Right.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. Like,
Yeah.
I know. Oh man, like, how are they going to win a second night of a back-to-back? They're the Islanders.
Mm.
Just teams do it all the time.
Yeah.
Teams freaking do it all the time. Go
Right.
beat these two teams that you're better than, and you go into that Sabres game with a little bit of mojo, and all of a sudden we get to the fan base shows up on Tuesday night and against Pittsburgh, and maybe the coach talks to the media 3 or 4 games in a row before, and everybody's living copacetic. Like, it's such a easy, simple way to fix these things, because you're and the best part about this is we're not saying, man, if they could just find a way to beat the Oilers, and they can find a way to beat the Avalanche and the Stars in these next 3 games, man, like, how great would that be? It's the Blue Jackets and the Sabres and the Ducks. Like, it's so out there in front of you to turn a 3-3-2 start into a 6-3-2 start and be like, man, the Islanders they've righted the ship. It's it's not that hard. It's not that difficult. But they are I said last week about how, like, they get presented with these forks in the road, and they somehow invented a third option to make. And the Noah Dobson play was the perfect example of exactly what I was talking about, right? There were two very that's an A-B decision that Dobson had in his feet. Do I smack that puck into the corner and just clear it out of the danger zone, or do I kind of just lock up with the puck in between, like, the triangle, like my 2 skates and the stick, and I'm just really hard on it and try to buy time until my teammate comes and fishes it out? Because that's what you're supposed to do, either A or B there, really. And he decided, I've got a better idea than the 2 A-B options. I'm going to invent a C here, and I'm going to pass it to the player on the other team.
Yeah.
And, like, so the A and the B option here are, do we just go out there and beat the brakes out of these teams because we're better than them, or do we lose them? And we're going to see what they do as a team here, because it's going to be what the thing that makes 0 sense. They'll probably go like 0-3 and go into that Ranger game, and then they win that game. And they're like, well, that was a big win for us. Hopefully we can build on it. Well, you could have been building towards something already. I'm getting mad about stuff that hasn't happened yet.
As I was going to say, we're getting too far afield of the games here, but that's the situation we're in now.
Yeah,
like, that's just the situation we're in, because these guys have conditioned us to feel.
We've got 300 and something episodes of this podcast in the bank, and we very rarely get mad about shit that hasn't happened yet.
Right.
But when the team pushes us to the edge, well, we're human beings. I can't help but get mad about a hypothetical overtime loss to the Blue Jackets after a hypothetical shootout loss to the Ducks the night before.
Yeah, I know. No, it's funny that, like, we've done 300 episodes of the show, and I mean 150 of them are about this. Again, them playing like this. That's just how it is. It's basically the last 2 seasons. Real quick, it's not really related, but although I guess it is. After the Devils game, I saw a reply to a tweet. I don't remember the original tweet, but it was from a Devils fan, and they sincerely were like, the Islanders play that stifling defense, so the Devils getting a point is kind of huge. And I felt like replying to this person who I don't know, being like, the only thing the Islanders are stifling these days is their own attendance. That's it. That's the only thing they can stifle. They haven't stifled anybody on the ice in a long, long time. But anyway, so I mean, this has been a very ranty episode, but I think, again, this is kind of where we are. Like, I didn't know what to do. I was beside myself last night. I just didn't know what to do. And it wasn't like I didn't think they were going to win the game. Like, going in, I was like, they're going to get blown out, and they kind of did. But again, just the way it goes down is the most excruciatingly awful, stupid, and frankly repetitive thing we've ever seen. It's crazy that they keep doing the same things over and over and over again, and nobody does anything about it. That's the thing.
They played 8 games.
Yeah.
And 2 of them have it driven us up a wall, I would say.
Yeah, right.
The Stars game, that just looked like a normal hockey loss.
Yeah.
It happens. The Avalanche game was a good win.
They won. Yeah.
6 of the 8 games have just, and 2 of which they've won, have driven the fan base up a wall. Like, that is an insane percentage for a team that is supposed to be, right? Not the Sharks, not the Blackhawks, not the Coyotes of yore or the Senators of yore. The team that's supposed to be a playoff contender that played at 100-point pace under their new coach, new Then they get a full training camp under him. It's supposed to be some optimism. 6 of 8. What is that? 75% or so.
Yeah.
75% of the games through 8 so far this season have driven us up a wall.
Yeah.
That means once out of every 4 times you watch the Islanders, you'll be like, I'll be at least it was just a regular hockey game, and 50% of those will be a loss.
Yeah. Man, I don't know. But hey,
I almost felt bad about the way we were reacted. We did our podcast last week because it was right after the Canadiens game, which they won, and afterwards, I was like, you know what? They did win that game. They've got 2 wins. They've gotten points in every game but 1 to start the season. I should be a little bit better. It's the beginning of the season. And then they followed that up with the Red Wings game and then the Devils game and the Panthers game. That's a psychotic week. Week from a team that is not supposed to be this psychotic, because they were psychotic for the past 2 seasons, and they're supposed to stop doing it. And it made me even more mad. I'm just like, I wasn't mad enough last week, because like the Islanders, like I should have saw this coming, that this is not going to stop soon. Like what evidence do we have that this is just going to get nipped in the bud?
Oh, zero.
Right?
None. That's the thing. That it's the same guys doing the same things over and over and over again. Like they were better at protecting leads when they sucked under Jack Capuano. Like I was actually thinking about that. Like that third period against the Devils was straight out of the Jack Capuano era. And I'm not saying that to like, throw strays at Jack Capuano, but wasn't it like they worked hard. They got the lead. They're playing well. And then the third period, they just stop doing anything. And it should drive me nuts, because people at Lighthouse Hockey and on Twitter would be like, oh, they always go into this defensive shell in the third period. It doesn't work. But if you listen to what Jack was talking about before and after those games, he would say, we're not going into a defensive shell. We want to push the pace. We want to keep scoring, but they just didn't do that. Like we just sat back. So if the coach is telling them to keep going forward and they're not, and they're just sitting back and letting these games go away, whose fault is it? Somebody is at fault. I want somebody to be at fault for this. I just don't understand. It's unreal that we keep living this same reality over and over and over again, to the point where even the good games cannot be enjoyed. Like that Avalanche game has already been memory hold. Yeah. And then, the day after, people are like, wow, of course they won. Georgiev stinks, and that everybody's hurt, and Makar was terrible. And by the way, Makar was the player of the week last week. He was so mad that he was so bad against the Islanders that he just decided, screw this, and he just hulked out for a week, and he had, 8 points or something in a week. So that's what you're supposed to do. Take those losses and turn them into positives and victories and take the next step. The Islanders don't take the next step. They keep taking steps backwards. Matt Barzal, I'm tired of hearing all the stories about Matt Barzal wanting to be a premier player. He's not. Is Sidney Crosby going to have 3 points, all of which are at special teams in the first 8 games of the season? No, he's not that guy. Stop being that guy. Be your own guy. Like, I just hate this. And don't even get me started on we don't want to fight for the playoff spot at the end of the season and be scrambling. Well, guess what? That's exactly what you guys are on pace to do. So all of this stuff is just, it's infuriating. And it just, I don't know who's going to stop it. Lou Lamoriello doesn't seem like he's interested in stopping it. Patrick Waugh is now ingratiated. He ain't stopping it. He's talking about, well, yeah, we knew they were going to be good. Thanks, coach. That's really helpful. And the players are all the same players. They're all the same players. Nobody wants to get in somebody's face and be like, that's your fault. Somebody needs to tell Noah Dobson that was your fault that happened. Right. When it is his fault. Not when it's not his fault. When it's his fault, you got to do that. Somebody's got to do that, because if you're not going to do that, you're not going to get better. We're all doing this in service of getting better. I don't think these guys want to keep blowing these leads and losing these games, yet they keep doing it over and over and over and over again. You can't keep playing these third periods and just, with nothing going on. You know who disappears every third period? Like Kyle Palmieri seems to disappear every third period. He's great for first 2 periods and then he disappears, right? Oh, we didn't even talk this whole time about Pierre Engvall. We didn't even talk about like the flurry of moves that they made, all of which were literal deck chairs on a Titanic scenario. Oh, we brought up Pierre Engvall and Hudson Fasching and we signed Matt Martin. Great. All of those guys are real difference makers. Thanks. Thanks, guys. That's great. Pierre Engvall had one shift that I noticed him, and that's because Brendan Burke said he can fly, and then he did nothing with the puck. I think he gave the puck away to some Panther defender. So we did all this, obviously Duclair's on long-term injured reserve. We did all this to bring these guys back up and bring Martin back, and their impact on the game was zero, or if anything, deleterious and disastrous.
Yeah.
Again, we're moving deck chairs around, and we're moving these things around, and the results are the exact same thing. This team has been existing, and listen, we've praised Lou a lot. This team has been existing on hit single after hit single after hit single over and over and over again. Not in a music sense, in a baseball sense. They hit singles. They're good at getting singles, and they move around the bases like that. They don't hit home runs. Well, guess what? Now you're stuck with a bunch of aging singles hitters that aren't hitting singles anymore. That's what happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I meant to say that off the jump. It's like you can criticize Lou Lamoriello all you want for however you want as a fan, but I think there's very different the perception of Lou outside the team and inside the team when it comes to situations like dealing with personnel. It's couldn't be more different from reality, and that's what everyone always says. Like all his guys love him, his players love him, the coaches love. Everyone loves Lou as a human being, and he even said lovely. So. He said during his press conference, which wasn't good enough for anyone before the game, like everybody, when addressing the Engvall situation, like every player in this team knows what their role is. We have an eye-to-eye conversation. They know what's expected of them, and my door is always open, and so is Patrick's door. And that's how he runs the ship. And I think the Islanders have just been such desperate need for something like that. That's why, to the most part, it's worked. So you could be critical if you want, like the way that he's perceived by the media, and you can believe into it. I just choose not to. But you can definitely 100% be critical of the way the roster looks right now, because now the situation is how, like we just were saying, who's dragging them out? Like how are they going to get out of this mess? Because I mean, you brought up Palmieri. Palmieri leads the team in points at 7 in 8 games. Then it's Brock Nelson at 6, 4 goals, 2 assists in 8 games. The third guy, tied with Noah Dobson, is Max Siplikov. So that's one line that's doing great. One of them had never played in the NHL before, and probably doesn't speak very good English, and had never heard of Brock Nelson or Carl Palmieri before this game, but before the season. And that's the line that is the only one that's really going. We can say, the Lee Pajot duo has been pretty good, and they have. I think Lee's been good. But at the same time, you're looking at that and saying, those guys are going, and they're still not playing well. Like if their second and third line are going, they're still not playing well. It's because the guys who need to drag them out of this situation, Horvat, Barzal, Dobson, your best players, and they haven't been their best players. And then the rest of the group has just been dross, for lack of a better word. So, and actually, now that I think about it, the only person who I've heard actually take any accountability for anything so far has been Kyle Palmieri. And it was, he made a mistake with Siplikov in front of the net at one game. I can't remember which game it was. They turned the puck over in the slot, and he's like, yeah, that was my fault. It wasn't his. And now that's like the one shred of accountability that this team has taken, I feel like, throughout the entire season. So yeah, they really need to fix it. And I don't think the answers are, like you said, rearranging deck chairs. The answer wasn't ever going to be, they called up Hudson Fasching and sent down Liam Foudy. Like, no, that's not going to change it. What's going to change it is the rest of the team being like, we've been shitty. We need to be better. I can't sleep at night because of how shitty we've been. But that's not coming yet. So, it's really, it's not a hopeless situation. And that even makes it more infuriating, right? Like it would be hopeless if this team came into the year with 0 expectations. You're like, man, they, at least, we knew this was coming. No. It's infuriating because we know this team can be better, and we've screamed it from the rooftops for 3 years, and everyone else has just made fun of us. Like, you're delusional. Your best defenseman is passing the puck to Jesper Bratt, who's not on his team. What is wrong with you? And why can't you see it? And we have to be like, well, you don't get it because we got Anthony Duclair now. Like, no, well, that's not going to stop Noah Dobson from setting up Kirill Kaprizov, who's on the Islanders, in the slot when that Wild come to town. So
it's all I know is that if you and I have an episode like this in December, which is not that far away, it's going to become, they need to trade Nelson, Palmieri,
I know,
and these other, whatever other UFAs are there. Maybe find a taker for Lee if you could retain salary. We're going to start having those conversations.
Yeah, which
because
we haven't had to do.
That's the next step.
Yeah,
that's the only next step.
To do. And so, I think it was our friend Matt Strauss texted me. He's like, I hope this is rock bottom. And I got that text message. I was like, "What is he talking about? How could this be rock bottom? It's only October." And I realized I'm the crazy one in that scenario because it should be
It should be.
for good NHL teams.
Yeah.
This week would be rock bottom, but
Right.
because we're so conditioned to a season of rock bottoms, which they had
Yep.
last year and the year before, where it's just peaks and valleys, and the valleys are excruciatingly low.
Yeah.
Like, no, it's just October.
Right.
We got to strap in, boys. Like, we're you think this is rock bottom? Wait until they go play the Vancouver Canucks out west in a couple weeks after losing. That's going to be what, an 8 or 9 game losing streak, and we still have. And then we're going to have to convince ourselves the season isn't over, and then we'll climb back up, and then it'll be another rock bottom after that, and then the All-Star break comes, and then they play well, and then there's going to be another rock bottom. No, this should be rock bottom. There's no reason that this shouldn't be rock bottom for the podcast and for the team.
For a normal team, you're right, but this is not a normal team,
Right.
and it never has been, and it will never be until something changes. Again, just to get the one example from that Panthers game, you guys you blow the lead, you give up the game winning goal, or what that at that point was the go ahead goal. You get a power play immediately, and then you do nothing with it. Like, that's not normal. I'm sorry, that's just not normal. Like, there are teams below the Islanders in the standings that would have made that power play count. But for these guys, I think maybe they're a little high on their own supply, or I don't know what they are. Or they don't have the juice in them. I mean, so much for all those bag skates. They don't seem to be like, bag skating there.
Where's Aiden Fulp?
Yeah. So I don't know. Something needs to change. And I don't want to have, again, we've been basically just trading rants this whole episode here. And I don't want to do this. I don't want to talk about this. I want to talk about wins. I don't want to talk about another blown lead to the Devils. We did that movie already, or this, or, another, remember when they used to win the seconds of back-to-backs all the time? Yeah. That was a long time ago. So, okay. We want to end with something fun. And fortunately, once again, the Maple Leafs provide the fodder for this. They have also not been off to the greatest season possible. In fact, Austin Matthews is struggling a little bit, and they're struggling a bit, and they really needed a win going into Saturday night, hockey night in Canada, against their arch rivals, the Boston Bruins. And what did they do? They lost in overtime. I know, really. Leafs losing to the Bruins in overtime? Wow, that's crazy. That never happens. But while in a vacuum that seems like it's, the same thing that happens all the time, this overtime loss to the Bruins represented something of a breakthrough to a certain writer here. And so it is with great pleasure that we bring you the first edition this season of Master Leaf Theater. And who better to start with than our old friend Luke Fox Jukebox? Once again, the Jane Austen of Master Leaf Theater. I read this story today. It's not the best of Fox's work, but it definitely doesn't disappoint. I found a little bit of a section here to read. I should ask you first. Were you? I was keeping an eye on this because the Islanders game was just making me mad.
Yep.
Were you keeping an eye on this as well? Did you kind of watch the overtime or keep an eye on it?
Yeah, and I think that the build up to it was great because the Leafs on Monday beat the Lightning, and that put their record to believe it was 4-2 on the season. So, and they looked good according to everyone. There was podcast episodes about whether or not they were a legitimate Stanley Cup contender. Anthony Stolarz was dubbed the best goalie in the league. Chris Tanev, Morgan Riley was led blue line. This is the best blue line of the Matthews era. Craig Berube's accountability approach is working. We joked about him stopping practices, even after a win, telling them not to get complacent. So the Leafs won 4 games in 6, the first 6 games of the season, and a entire media market and fan base that knows a lot better than to get caught up in these kind of things, especially in the regular season, given their history. They all just fell hook, line, and sinker for this one. And honestly, I was a little scared myself. I was like, shit, like they keep winning. It's gonna be annoying if they just win this division, whatever. But in a week that was just the Islanders were driving me up a wall, the Leafs were there to bring me back down, thankfully, because we couldn't, like, even when they were 4-2, like even the amulet jokes weren't hitting us as
right, yeah.
right. But Then they go ahead. They lose to the Blue Jackets, and then they play the night after that comprehensive win against the Lightning. That was a statement win, according to the Leafs writers. Announced themselves as a contender to win the division and the cup. Then they lose to the Blue Jackets, but whatever. Second night of back-to-back, and plus they got Craig Berube's old team coming to town. And the next team, and this team really does a good job of responding to duds. They always pick themselves back up, and they lose that one in pretty embarrassing fashion. Then they have the Bruins on the other end of it. And after that Blues game, I finally started to listen, to feel confident enough that they're in a dark enough place to listen to Leafs podcasts again, because I don't listen when they're doing well.
No, of course not.
And I'm a coward. Yep. And so I tune into Kipper and Bourne on Friday. The Leafs are getting torn to shreds. The captain, Kipper, doesn't want to. If you've never listened to Kipper and Bourne, Nick Kyprios is clearly very good friends with Mitch Marner's camp. He didn't allow anyone to criticize Marner on that show. He focused all his attention on Austin Matthews and some other players, and it was incredible theater. If you can go listen, even the first 15 minutes, just listen to, because
definitely go back and listen to it, because it is phenomenal.
And you felt that, oh man, if they lose this game to the Bruins, no matter what, I know they scored a late goal to get a point, but if they lose this game to the Bruins on Saturday night, then they head to Winnipeg on Monday. If they lose this game to the Bruins, that and there was a jersey thrown on the ice in St. Louis, which that was the only thing missing from the Islanders this week, was someone throwing a jersey on the ice last night. So a jersey's on the ice, and you think, okay, if there's a jersey on the ice, Kipper's flipping out. The fan base is starting to get fed up with the lack of accountability now from the Berube Leafs, which is hilarious, because on Monday they were the most accountable bunch in all sports, and then on Friday there's no accountability, as if this thing is maybe just a made up theme.
Right.
But on Saturday they lose to the Bruins. You think, great, they're gonna burn the place down, and yet here comes Luke Fox jukebox.
Yes. So Luke Fox again finds this particular loss to the Bruins in overtime to be different than all the other Leafs losses to the Bruins in overtime. And this is from an article titled "Maple Leafs Focusing on Positives After Salvaging a Point Against Bruins." And it's just after the lead. For large swaths of the night and the entire first period, the home side appeared more determined and relentless, and the speedier Bruins outshot their visitors 34-23. Quote, "It's not always going to be a perfect start," Morgan Riley said, "but I thought we did a good job of hanging on and leaving the period with a tie." Unquote. Were it not for another grade A start by Anthony Stolarz in net, his sixth, things could have gotten out of hand early. Quote, "You look down at each other and you see Jeremy Swayman, you know you're going to have to put together a sharp game," Stolarz said. Quote, "Getting a point out of this and coming back late, it's a step in the right direction for our group." End quote. A baby step maybe, but tangible progress nonetheless. Okay, so if the Leafs come back in a game and lose in overtime, it's progress. But if the Leafs just get beat and then lose in overtime, it's not progress? Like, I don't understand. Like this, I get that these guys probably have a reputation for trying to, look at everything through blue and white goggles, but this is maybe exhibit A in that sort of thing. Like, instead of being like, yeah, the Leafs didn't beat the Bruins again, it's no, but this one's different. Okay, good luck kind of convincing Leafs Nation about that. I don't think they're that stupid. But anyway, it was just funny that, and then, by the way, Matthews, who, again, was taking a lot of heat. Again, go back and listen to that Kipper and Bourne episode, because it's fantastic. He was taking a lot of heat because he hasn't really been scoring that much this season. His giveaway in overtime led to Brad Marchand's goal. And Marchand had taken a lot of heat too, because he hadn't had a goal. Jim Montgomery pushed him on the bench a little bit, which apparently was a huge deal. It seemed pretty stupid to me after I watched the video. I was like, that's it. So it was in fact a confluence of events, but Luke Fox is out here working hard to make sure that that the Leafs actually, this is pretty good for them. Don't think this is bad. This is actually this is a good thing for the Leafs that they lost to the Bruins in overtime after all the things the Bruins went through last week. So again, it's not the Luke Fox's best work, but
we're easing in.
Yeah, there is a side story to this though. This is like back in the 70s, like Marvel Comics used to have like the main story, then they have like a side story in the back of the book. the backup story. Think of this as sort of the backup story. Obviously, the World Series is going on. Freddie Freeman, 10th inning home run, beats the Yankees in game 1. And Luke Fox writes this. Ryan Reeves missed Freddie Freeman's historic extra innings walk-off grand slam Friday because he forgot the World Series was on. Quote, to be honest, I'm not a huge baseball guy, Reeves says. A pause. A smile. Quote, there's no contact in baseball, so it's really not for me.
Wow.
Like,
cool, man.
Like, why do you include this? I don't understand. Like,
So
why
good.
is this even in here? Hey, man, did you watch that game last night? Nah, I'm not really into baseball. Okay, that's it. That's where the interaction ends.
It
Why is this in
reminds me
here?
of one of his classics of the genre last year with Fraser Minton and about Morgan Riley being like, "You just really love the game, don't you, kid?" Like, what? Did he just write an entire story about how a professional hockey player likes playing hockey?
Right.
Like,
Yeah,
okay.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So
one of the comments down here from somebody named Mike in Ottawa, right? First, what was the point of that Reeves anecdote? Who cares? Like, that's anyway.
It's and like we were saying, like this is not a magnum opus, but this is a good scene setter to kind of direct us in case things do hit the fan for them next week. I like that we have this little appetizer because, like I said, the entire fan base was on a cliff's edge after those losses, and the efforts and the fact that maybe the goalie playing out of his mind is covered up some of the warts that are now starting to show, and we're not getting the saves and we're losing games. But yeah, there's Luke Fox to say, guys, we're baby steps here. This isn't. We're not a juggernaut. This isn't a team that's expected to do much. Remember, these are the scrappy little Leafs. Getting to overtime against the big bad Bruins is a good step for them. When you remember to last week, they were talked about as a Stanley Cup contender. So the fact that they are satisfied with an overtime loss to the Bruins, in which by Luke Fox Jukebox's own admission, were outplayed by large swaths of the game and were dragged into the fight by their goalie. If that's a step in the right direction, maybe where the situation the Islanders are in is not all that dire. We just got to find a way to take a baby step, maybe get the Ducks into overtime or something. Yeah. But yeah, amazing water carrying job by a guy who works for the rights holders here to pat them on the back for a game which they were outplayed and lost on the heels of 2 bad games. Right, like this wasn't exactly. They didn't come into this one winning 5 in a row. They came into this one losing to the Blues and the Blue Jackets, and spoiling a really strong start to the season. So couldn't be happier to see that they're scuffling here. Really hope the Jets come through for us on Monday night against them, because that really, like, it's just what I need. It's they won't know it. Mark Scheifele won't know it, but we're all counting on him on Monday night to just give us a little bit of like a little smile going into Tuesday, because it's just not been much fun here in Winnipeg East. Please, Mark, make us happy, and hopefully Kipper takes a little bit of a more sour tone than Luke Fox Jukebox did about the loss.
So. Right. Yeah, I definitely would think so. And that's the 8-0 Winnipeg Jets. So yeah, we'll see. That'll be a fun game. So that'll do that. We wanted to get that in there to get a good laugh in, but really, it's not a whole lot to laugh about with the Islanders right now. They need to win some games. They need to make up some points, and that's the one thing. I mean, you mentioned before that the Islanders aren't the only team that's scuffling. Teams like the Leafs are as well, and the Penguins. The Penguins gave up 3 goals in about a 90-second span in Vancouver last night after being shot. They were outshot in Edmonton at one point, like 30-9 or something, some kind of crazy thing. So it's early. It is early, but for the Islanders, it's very late in terms of making these changes. But in terms of points, season's not over. Like, there's still a long time to go, and so they can, as you were just alluding to, they can turn this around. And it starts with winning some games.
Yeah, right. very realistically can turn it around to the point where on Sunday night we're like, oh man, I'm kind of upset with the way I acted on. I was really immature and kind of annoying that I just ranted through an hour and a half of a hockey game after whatever. They're now 6-2-2 or whatever they'd end up being. So
I would not feel too bad. Like this is what this team does. And I keep getting back to it. I found now I'm sounding like a broken record. Now I feel a little bit like the Islanders here. I'm living in Groundhog Day a little bit, but this is not game 8 of this season. This is game 175 or whatever of the 2 seasons that we've got going on. It's the same thing over and over again. They have to change it. Go out there, take a lead, hold on to it, win it. Kill a bunch of penalties. Play a normal hockey game. You did it once. I don't care if it was the Avalanche or I don't care if David Abishur or whoever was in goal for the Avalanche at that time. It doesn't matter. They did it once. They can do it. But a lot of times they just choose not to. They are satisfied with the two pretty good periods and then just sit back and let the other team take the game over and then tell us that they played really well. Thanks, guys. Really helpful.
Yep.
Okay. We're going to wrap it up. Again, we thank you for listening. It's been a bit of a ranty episode, but we hope we helped you get some of that out of your system. This Friday, brand new episode of Weird Islanders, the podcast. It's fantastic and involves our youngest Weird Islander ever. Ooh, who could it be? It's going to be a good one. Sort of a contemporary one too, but I can't wait for that to come out. Also, the day before that, the 31st, Halloween, my latest book club comes out at the Patreon. Check that out. It's a good book, and it's written by a guy who was on the ground for some of the Islanders' greatest teams and then went on to run another team. So it was a fascinating book for me. I kind of wish there was a little bit more to it, but I did enjoy it. And take a look. And it actually forced me to bust a fun timepiece out of my closet for the picture that I put at the top. So please read it. We also did a Patreon episode last week, our Country Club Atmosphere for the month, where we talked about movies, both scary and otherwise, for Halloween. And it's got a good reaction. So sign up for the Country Club tier and you can hear that. You can read my book club and you can get all of our mailbag episodes and other stuff over at the Patreon. Also, you can sign up for free at Patreon to get our announcements and our weekly release calendar. Find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, Audible.com, iHeartRadio, YouTube Music, wherever you get your podcasts. Please leave us a review where you can. There was some sort of tech issue with YouTube last week. It affected other podcasts. I don't know why our episode didn't end up there. So if you listen to us on YouTube/YouTube Music, hopefully you can hear this and hopefully it's fixed. I don't know what happened. I tried to fix it myself, but it was a YouTube problem, not a my problem. So yell at them. Our theme song is Morning Haze by Family Dinner. Listen to more of their music on Spotify and look out for their new album, God Looks Out for Fools, out right now. Read Lighthouse Hockey every single day if you miss up-to-date Islanders news and discussion. Islanders Anxiety Podcasts are part of the Fans First Sports Network. Shop VintageIceHockey.com. Try Wines and the Pinot Project. Mike, where can everybody find you on Twitter?
The Big Lebowski with 2 E's.
Follow Mike at the Big Lebowski. Read and listen to his work at Action Network. Any final thoughts on the many, many subjects we've covered here? We've covered a lot without actually sort of detailing a lot of these things. So hopefully everybody's kind of up to speed on the goings on, because we just sort of like dove in and started yelling about stuff. But it's been a lot.
Yeah, nothing else. The only thing is the saddest part of all this is come Tuesday around 6:30 p.m. Eastern time, I'll be really jacked up to watch the New York Islanders play hockey and convincing myself that this is the start of the run to change the season and change the team and change the DNA. And the first 182 games that we saw of this version of the Islanders were just a mirage. The real ones will show up on Tuesday against the Ducks.
If this is the start of that run, then we just watched the longest preseason ever. Basically, 180 game preseason that included some postseason, but it was all preseason. So I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, well, we'll be here and we'll be watching. And like I said, we're going to record Sunday evening after the Rangers game. So it'll be as up to date as we could possibly get it. And we'll be back next week. So in the meantime, plenty of stuff going on at the Patreon. Thank you so much for listening. And we will talk to you again very soon. All right, take care. Bye-bye.